Hi everybody, welcome to my channel Frugalisama. My name's Sam and this is where I talk about all things sewing. Today I've got a little bit of a different video for you. I'm joining in with the 5 questions, 1 take tag. This has been instigated by Lindsay at Inside the Hem. I think it was started a couple of years ago by Lisa Kitch, but it's been resurrected by Lindsay. And this is where quite a few sewing YouTubers are answering the same 5 questions and just doing it in 1 take. So here we go. So the first question is, describe your sewing journey and what does it look like? So essentially I didn't really do any sewing in school. We did a little bit in junior school, but just hand sewing. During my high school years there was no sewing in the curriculum at all. We did woodwork and metalwork and domestic science. And then for my A-levels years, so 16, 17, I had to go to a different school. My school didn't do it, and there was a small gap in my curriculum, and they did have a sewing teacher there. Don't ever remember meeting her or him. I don't remember anything about it at all. I do remember just having it there, but I don't remember doing anything at all really. So that was that until I was about 20, 21, and yeah, I got a sewing machine, took an interest in sewing. There were some little magazines about at the time. I've always been a bit sort of creative and crafty. But yeah, there was a magazine called, I think it was called Me Magazine. And I did a little bit of a hand sewing. I did a patchwork cushion, I think, seem to remember. And then when I got pregnant with my son, which I will have been, I was 22 when I had him, so when I was about 21, I decided that I wasn't going to buy maternity wear, I was going to make it. So my mum bought me a second-hand sewing machine when I was pregnant. He's 31 now, so you can see how long ago that is. And yeah, that's how I started to sew, is just doing maternity wear. So the machine that I got was second-hand and it's still going. I still got it. I've just had 1 more sewing machine since then, apart from a couple of second-hand singers that are sort of collector's pieces. But yeah, it was whilst I was pregnant, too tight really to pay for maternity wear. I wasn't ever going to need it again, so I didn't see the point in paying for it. And I've sewn ever since. So I've been self-taught, I would say. My mum doesn't sew. My grandma sewed a little bit. I think grandma's generation all had sewing machines to run up curtains and do mending, but she certainly didn't make her own clothes. So yeah, I can't say that I learnt at my mother's or my grandmother's feet. It was very much self-taught. No YouTube in those days, so it was your sewing books and things like that. And then I probably sewed a little bit throughout the years when the need arose. So yeah, maybe for an interview, if I wanted a nice outfit for an interview. I made outfits for a job that I got in 2003, and then fancy dress, or things like when we were going to posh do's and things like that, when I didn't want to fork out for you know, clothes that I were only ever going to wear once. And as my son was growing up then, I would make him fancy dress costumes. So by fancy dress costumes I mean things that it's not cosplay so much as Halloween outfits and things like that. So not particularly intensively really, until probably about 7 years ago, when the Sewing Bee came back on TV, probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I got my new, to me, second-hand Janome machine, and that's probably where I started sewing a little bit more intensely then. And it's been mainly dressmaking, but I've done quite a lot of bags and things like that. Tried my hand at quilts, but nothing too complicated in the quilting line. So the next question is to describe your sewing space, and is it a mess and do you share it? So I've mentioned before in the videos that yes, I actually share my sewing space. It's the dining room downstairs, And that's the reason why I don't record downstairs, because the dining room sits between the kitchen and the living room. I've got a dog, I've got a husband, they wander in and out. So I tend to do my recording away from the sewing space so that I can just get a little bit of peace and quiet and I'm not getting disturbed all the time. So yeah, for a long time I had my sewing machine on the dining room table, so every time we had to eat I had to move it, and then I got a nice little desk. So I will insert some pictures, although it's one take, I will insert some pictures of the area that I sew in. So it's just one corner of the dining room. It was a dead space essentially, there was nothing there. And I put the little desk there, and that's been a real game changer, is that little desk, and where I don't have to put my sewing machine away every time, but I do in essence have to keep it reasonably tidy, which leads me on to whether it's messy or not. And at the moment, where it's in a work in process, shall we say. I'm just committed myself throughout October to get to the bottom of some of the sticking bits. I've always thought I've been quite relatively organised in that all my patterns are in one place. My fabric is spread around the house because I've got so much. I've taken on quite a few other people's things, so it is in different spaces in the house, but essentially the vast majority of it is in the dining room, and it becomes a mess and then you tidy it up, and it becomes a mess and you tidy it up, so it just needs bottoming and starting again, really. So yes, a bit of a work in progress at the moment. So yeah, it's a little bit messy, and it's in the dining room and it is shared. We use that dining room for every meal, breakfast, lunch and tea. And we use the dining room table. My laptop's on there, so I do my editing on there. The dog sleeps in there, so yeah, it is very much a shared space. So the next question is, what's it like to be a sewing YouTuber? So if you watch Andra Makes, I actually did an interview with Andra quite a while ago, I think it was July, and yeah, she sort of interviewed me, and we talked about what it is like to be a sewing YouTuber. So I go into it in more depth there, but very briefly, does it meet my expectations? It's a lot harder work than what people make it out to be, or it is for me. That might just be my approach to it. I want to provide something with a certain amount of benefits to people. I want to sort of pass on my knowledge, and there's quite a lot of editing involved in that. But yeah, in terms of meeting my expectations, it's every day is a learning day with YouTube. There's always something new to learn. It's interesting. It keeps the brain going. And what's the reaction from other people is another part of that question, from other people in your life, I presume. And to answer that question is, I don't tend to talk about it very much with other people. Most of the people in my life aren't particularly interested in sewing. My mum doesn't know I've got a YouTube channel. I'm very close to my mum. I don't really talk about it with family and friends. Friends do know that I've got a YouTube channel, and I'm pretty sure they don't bother watching because they're not interested in sewing. So yeah, I don't tend to really tell people about it unless they've spotted me and they've seen it. The more subscribers you get, obviously the more chances there are of people spotting that you've got a YouTube channel. So I've got a couple of friends that do sort of talk about it, but no, it's not something I keep it to myself, really. I don't really. Whenever anybody's talking about starting a YouTube channel, whatever the topic is, they tend to sort of say, "Oh, you get all your family and friends to watch," and I'd just be mortified if I thought people were watching it. So I kept it quiet, and I think for me that's been a better approach, because the people that are watching and subscribing are hopefully people who sew and are going to be interested in what I'm talking about. So the next question is to describe your most memorable project. So I've got Mandy wearing probably my most memorable project. Not for all the right reasons, probably. It was a tough question, was this one, because I think I've never made a wedding dress, for example. I didn't wear a wedding dress. And I wasn't particularly sewing very intensely at the time. and I do think it puts a lot of pressure on people. And no, so I've brought this along because this coat is the Princess Coat by Gretchen Hirsch, who's Charm Patterns. And I made this as a pattern test early, was that early 2020? Or was it early 2019? And it was my first ever pattern test. So I learned quite a lot doing this one. You know, it's memorable for a few reasons, and mostly it's because I never wear it. I mean, it doesn't look particularly fantastic on the screen at the moment because it's on the mannequin, Mandy the mannequin we like to call her. But you know, there was a lot of techniques in there that I'd never really done before. I've got welt buttons, I've done welt pockets before, very similar. There's a lot of sort of tailoring techniques within this coat. They've got the lantern sleeves. And the reason I don't wear it really is because it's just such a standout coat that's not my lifestyle really. So it's memorable in that, you know, it reminds me not to make things that I'm not going to wear in my normal everyday life. But I do love it, and I probably will never part with it. And I've worn it, but not very often, that's all. I just don't have that glamorous lifestyle. And of course, we went into lockdown, didn't we? So if I ever had an opportunity to go out somewhere glam, then that all got taken away anyway. So it's such a shame, really. But yeah, that's the Princess Coat by Gretchen Hirsch, and I have done a blog post about that over on my website. And the final question is, I'm just going to have a look at my questions here. The one quote or saying or piece of advice that resonates with sewing and your YouTube success. I don't know how you measure YouTube success really, but the one quote that I'm going to go with is, just do it. And that goes for sewing as well, really. Probably Nike came up with it, but one of the people that I turn to, or one of the YouTubers that I turn to for YouTubing advice is Think Media. They've given me quite a lot of confidence for going ahead. And one of his, Sean Cannell, who is Think Media, or who's the face behind Think Media, just says, just press record. So if you are thinking of setting up a YouTube channel and you're sort of wondering whether you should do it, and same for sewing as well, if you're thinking, oh, I wish I could sew, the only way you're going to learn how to sew is to sew. And the only way that you're going to learn how to have a YouTube channel is to make videos, press record, and actually make them and put them out there. So on that note, I'm going to, this is a tag, and you are supposed to tag people. And the first time I saw this tag this time round was Whitney at Tomcat Stitchery, and she just tagged everybody. If you've got a sewing YouTube channel, feel free to do it. And I would just reiterate that, but also I would put it onto anybody who's thinking about starting a YouTube channel. I'm going to tag you. So very recently somebody's just contacted me and said, I've been thinking about it. So Helen, this one's for you. Just do it. Tag yourself in. It gives you something to talk about. It gives you some framework. And this is for anybody as well. You know, just press record. Just do it. There's thousands and thousands of people out there of talking about all sorts of things on YouTube. It's a free platform, and it's a wonderful way of connecting with people, growing a community, finding people that are sort of like-minded. And yeah, I've really enjoyed it so far. So I'm tagging those people, but also my lovely pal Rowan at Yorkshire Sew Girl, if you fancy doing one. No pressure. And Alex Judge, because Alice Judge I've met a few times, and she gave me a shout out very, very early doors. So, and Andra makes. So I'm tagging those three, but I'm tagging everybody as well. So no pressure on those three that I've tagged specifically. But if you're thinking about doing a YouTube channel, why not? Go for it. So that's it from me today. I did say that I've not made a video for quite a while, and that's just simply just giving myself a little bit of headspace. I did say at the beginning that it takes my videos quite a lot of editing, so this will be a nice refreshing change, not having to spend hours and hours editing. I've got a couple of videos in the pipeline, and one is I've made my granddaughter a little pumpkin outfit, so I was going to do a little tutorial with that in mind. So if that's something of interest, be sure to subscribe, and that will tell you when the new video's out. If you hit the notification bell, that will let you know when new videos are out. If you hit subscribe, and there's lots and lots of videos on my channel that you can go back and look at. I tend to talk about sewing on a budget and making sewing accessible to people. So there's lots of free patterns out there, videos of free patterns. There's lots of videos of how-tos as well. So in the meantime, if you want to go and watch any of those, if you subscribe and hit the notification bell, or just give me a like, that's fantastic. And be sure to follow the tag, and you can see everybody else's videos that's been making these videos on the 5 questions, 1 take. This is why I edit. So this is it from me today. Thank you so much for watching. I shall speak to you later. Bye.